As the clock ticked down on their final moments, these 13 inmates revealed some heartbreaking last words before their execution. Aileen Wuornos. Aileen Wuornos was sentenced to death for murdering 7 men between 1989 and 1990. Going by her last words, she believed that she did the right thing, ultimately saving people from getting hurt and raped. Aileen left the world believing that she'd be sailing away with the Rock and would be back with God. George Stinney. Convicted of murdering 2 white girls, 14-year-old George Stinney Jr. was sentenced to death by electric chair. In his final moments, Stinney was placed on a Bible because he was too small for the chair, and crying, maintained his innocence till his last breath. It wasn't until 2014 that Stinney was absolved of his conviction. Wesley Dodd, child killer. Wesley Allen Dodd requested his own hanging during his sentencing, claiming it was the method he killed his last victim with and wanted the same done to him in penance. Dodd's last words before he was hanged showed that he regretted his actions and that he had found hope and peace in God. Napoleon Beasley. Napoleon Beasley received the death sentence after being convicted of the 1994 murder of John Luttig. Minutes before his execution, Beasley expressed his remorse, stating that there were a lot of good men like him on death row who had been misguided and asked that the men be given a chance to do what's right. Robert Harris. In 1978, Robert Alton Harris was convicted of killing 2 teenage boys and executed in San Quentin Prison's gas chamber in 1992, marking the first execution in California since 1967. However, his last words were more notable as the murderer asserted that everybody dances with the Grim Reaper, whether you're a king or street sweeper. Thomas Grasso. In the hours before his execution, Thomas Grasso had one final statement for the world to know after being convicted of murdering 2 elderly victims. Grasso's only complaint before he was executed by lethal injection was that he didn't get his SpaghettiOs but got spaghetti instead, and he wanted the press to know that. Sean Sellers. At age 16, Sean Sellers became one of the youngest individuals to face the death penalty for 3 murders, including that of his parents. On Sellers' execution day, he died by lethal injection. He asked for mercy, his last words displaying his newly found Christian faith as he said he was going home. Peter Curtin. Peter Curtin, nicknamed the Vampire of Dusseldorf, got off on bloodshed even in his final moments. With a smile on his face, Curtin asked if he would still be able to hear the blood gushing from his neck as he was killed, adding that it'd be a pleasure to end all pleasures. Gary Gilmore. Gary Mark Gilmore, born Faye Kaufman, gained attention during his trial for demanding his death sentence. He had been convicted of the murder of 2 men in 1976. During his sentencing, Gilmore asked that he should be executed by a 5-man firing squad. His face detached as he said, "Let's do it." George Appel. Well, you'll be surprised by how many people found humor in deadly situations, and George Appel was one of them. Convicted of killing a police officer, Appel was sentenced to death by electric chair in 1928. His last words before his execution became infamous, the murderer saying witnesses were about to see a baked Appel. Lavinia Fisher. Often regarded as America's first female serial killer, Lavinia Fisher was sentenced to death by hanging after she was convicted of committing a highway robbery, a capital offense in the 18th century. Lavinia's last words echoed her lack of remorse, asking if anyone had any messages for the devil as she'd be seeing him soon. Thomas Lane. The Chardon High School shooting in 2012 that resulted in the death of 3 students was orchestrated by Thomas Lane. Although the defense had tried to paint Lane as mentally unstable during his sentencing, his emotions and actions proved to be the opposite. He admitted to his crime and offered no reason to the court. Carl Panzram. Not all death row inmates regretted their actions, and Carl Panzram, child killer and orchestrator of the 1920 killing spree in New Haven, Connecticut, was the opposite of remorseful. Before he was hanged, Carl wrote a letter saying that the only 2 things he regretted were mistreating animals and not killing the whole human race.